Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am back for another Slim Sports interview. And as always, I'm your host, Jay Slim. And joining me today is an absolute monster on the defensive line, has had quite the journey, and we're going to talk about it from Valley State to Tennessee State, now suiting up for Memphis this past season, now getting ready to head off to the pros to put some professional quarterbacks in the dirt where he knows they belong. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 foot defensive lineman, Jalen Bell. What's going on, man?
Man, how you doing today, man? Appreciate you for having me on.
Hey, absolutely, man. Excited to get a Memphis Tiger on. I got to come see y'all's stadium in person when y'all played USF. Ended up putting
Yes,
my
sir.
Bulls in the dirt there. Got the big time win in what was an instant thriller. If there was a game that only one game I could have gone to this season, I'm glad it was that one.
Yes,
So
sir.
absolutely amazing what you guys were able to do this year. Being in talks for Memphis going to the national playoffs, being in that group of five bid through most of the season, doing what you guys did. And you yourself, I want fans, viewers to get to know a little bit about your resume, a little bit about your background, real quick, in a segment that I like to call Resume Rundown. Going to show off what you do best by doing what I do best, and that's showing off a nice little graphic here about your career. Like I said, start off at Valley State. You were there from 2019 to 2022, then had a pit stop at Tennessee State for a couple years. Did
Yes,
have an
sir.
injury to where you could get a year back, and you came over to Memphis, joined the Tigers, where you were able to show people why you were an all SWAC conference player. Two of your years with Valley State, 21 and 22, you were third team all SWAC, and this past year you ended up helping the Tigers to another bowl game for the program, but your first ever bowl game as a player, making it to the Gasparilla Bowl. So obviously a great way to end your collegiate career, be able to have a winning season at this kind of level in a dominant conference like the AAC. And I want to talk real quick about what it was that you were trying to prove this year in 2025. Obviously, you're coming in having the experience from Valley State and Tennessee State, showing what you could do at the FCS level. Now you're coming up to the FBS level for a very talented program in Memphis. What would you say was there left for you to prove this past season? What was that chip on your shoulder that you were trying to show people, hey, I'm here and I mean business?
Uh, Honestly, man, just for me, just this season going in, just to show the coaches, that I can dominate and play on any level, that I could play a 12-week schedule versus some of those big name opponents, versus some of those guys that they're looking to draft and some of those top name guys. So, for me, it was just all about just showing what I can do, showing my versatility, just showing that I can play football on any level, showing that, no matter where you at, FCS, low tier ball, HBCU ball, football is football, and you just got to spot the ball. No matter what you can do, no matter what it is, at the end of the day, everybody wants to put once they put the ball in the dirt, we have to play football. And just showing coaches that's the one thing that I do, and that's the one thing that I love to do, and that's the one thing that I'm going to continue to do is just play ball and love doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I both know there's some dogs at the FCS level. No matter what
Yes,
level of
sir.
football you're going to, there are some guys that are going to put in that work, obviously, just like you did. And you come in as a newcomer for this program, but have a lot of experience on the defensive line, obviously. You have those years of experience from your previous stops, and you're coming in looking to make an impact both on and off the field as this veteran leader slash newcomer for the program. How would you say you kind of embraced that role, and how would you describe being in that type of position?
Honestly, at first, just coming in, you kind of just want to get around the team, get a feel for the guys and, kind of show the guys what you can do. And, kind of as the course of time went on, my first months there, just kind of grew with my team, grew with my brothers, put in a lot of work. And, over time, after they seen just how hard I work and, how much I believe in the goal of us winning, you know, they kind of looked towards me to a leader. I was able to talk to my guys before games, motivate my guys, talk to them during defensive meetings, I motivate them and call team meetings and, just kind of be that voice or be that guy on the defense that, always keeps us together, always brings us together, and really just bringing in the experience and shoot, just playing ball. I love to play ball and, my defense was a group of guys, a group of hard-hitting guys that love to get to the ball, and we love to hunt and, we enjoy doing that together. And, I felt like we grew a lot throughout the year and that's what made us a tough defense. Little do people know we were one of the best defenses that has came through Memphis in a long time. So I just feel like just going in and being able to gel with those guys and just showing them just exactly what I'm about. That I'm all about football, all about the game, and loving it. They were able to gel with me and be able to let me lead them, on Saturdays. I just feel like it helped us grow together as a team, and it just helped us have a good year and all for sure.
Hey, I mean, I can tell just by you talking right now that passion that you have for the game of football. And I'm sure you love that season opener against Chattanooga because
Yes, sir.
you went off. You had, I believe, 4 tackles and a big time sack in that game, which I'm going to show that sack off here in a little bit in a segment that we're going to get into after this question. But first, I got to ask, how would you say that this game really started a domino effect for you as far as your production throughout the season? Because I believe after that game you played Georgia State, you have another big TFL and like a half a sack, I believe. You have the interception against Troy and, a couple big time tackles there. So it kind of seemed to set things in motion for you to where you had a very good season for your last year at the college level. So how would you say that first game allowed you to really get the opportunities throughout the rest of the year?
Um, Honestly, just going in, I had a lot to prove, and I wanted to just show my team and my coaches, really the world, that I'm here and that I love to play football, and like this is exactly what I do. So, just after I got that first sack, on the FBS level, it was definitely a thriller. My teammates were excited for me, my coaches were excited for me. They just know how hard I work, for that moment. So it's definitely, definitely a great feeling to get it out the way, and just for me, it just gave me that motivation, knowing that this is how I work, knowing that that's what I put the work in for, is moments like that. So it just kind of pushed me to know, like, I can dominate at this level and that I can have a great season. So just kind of tried to carry that on. And, even in games that I didn't make as many plays as I wanted to, just wanted to dominate my box. And, as long as we're winning, that's my main goal. Make sure we take care of the team and get a win no matter what's in my stat book. But if it comes for sure.
Hey, absolutely, man. And that sack that you had against Chattanooga made it onto my list for a segment that we're going to get into that I love doing with some defensive linemen because I love showing off those big time hits for a segment that I like to call Make That Play, where I put together what I feel like were your top 3 plays from this past season. And spoiler, it is at number 3, so we're going to get into the other 2 here in a sec. But I do want to ask you, as this dominant defensive lineman, doing what you do best on the field, what would you say was your best play from this past season?
We gotta go Troy to pick. I kind of was working for that and looking for it the whole game. I ended up running a stunt that we ran earlier in the game, and man, they ended up popping for me. And coach say, as long as you run to the ball, it might be a blessing for you. Man, I ran towards the ball. My quarterback Duke, he deflected it. Man, I seen it in the air. I looked around. I say, okay, this might be God telling me this your ball. Caught it, man. It was literally crazy. Me and Drew locked eyes. I looked at him, and it felt like the play was way longer than it was. I looked at him. I'm like, Drew, I might take this. He like, man, go down in my head. I'm like, come on, let's go home. We won the game. Let's go home. Let's get home, man. We got this dub one. So it was definitely, one of the greatest experiences, for sure. Defensive linemen don't catch too many picks. So man, so to catch one for sure on the FBS level, and for it to be my last year, that was definitely just a blessing for me for sure.
Hey, absolutely, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was in my top 3 for a while. It actually was at number 4 for me, but that's because of these big time hits that you had and how you were able to get them. And I'll explain a little bit more in depth here right now. Starting off at number 3 with that Chattanooga sack. Obviously, I had to put that one in there just because of the momentum that it got you throughout the season, and you set them back pretty much a whole nother first down yardage. I believe it was for 9 to 10 yards there. You came around off the edge. They completely forgot to block you, and you said, "Hey, that's fine. The quarterback's going
Appreciate
down."
you.
You ended up putting him in the dirt, spun him to the ground with some ferocity. So that one I had to put at number 3. Number 2 was your 5 yard TFL going against Georgia State, where you ended up pushing the O lineman off of you, shed that block real quick, right when they were handing it off to the running back. He was looking to get to the gap. He did not make it because you pulverized him right into the ground, right off rip, the moment you got through that block. So that one I had at number 2. Number 1, I had to go with your 10-yard sack against Rice just because of the tenacity that you had, being able to fight through blocks, diving at the guy's legs to bring him down. You ended up slicing through the O line, right through that block, off rip. Quarterback goes, he tries to scramble out. You dive at his legs, wrap him up, and you spin him down for big time loss of yardage there as well. So Those
Yeah.
I had for my top three. Obviously, that pick was right there with it. You
Yes,
were able to
sir.
make plays left and right throughout the season, so it's hard to just come up with three, obviously. And
Appreciate you, man.
your contribution is part of why you guys were able to go 6-0 to start the season. It's hard to just win two, 3 games in a row. You guys went 6-0 to open up the year. And there were
Yes, sir.
conversations I mentioned before about you guys being in the national playoffs, being that group of five bid, because you guys were proving to be one of those top teams. What would you say really clicked early on both sides of the ball for this Tigers team to where you guys could take down some very tough opponents and Arkansas, FAU, Troy. I mentioned USF as well. What really clicked?
I would say honestly, just coming in and getting together with the guys, especially on defense and well, especially on defense, we kind of gelled together quickly. We kind of just all had the same goal of winning, and kind of when we sat down and got into that mindset, and it's time to start to go over to the offense. We had a goal of winning, and I talked to the team a lot about our legacy. What would they look back at us and say about our legacy? So everything we did, we kind of put it towards that. How can we build off our legacy each week? What can they remember about this year's Memphis Tigers? And that kind of was like our message throughout the year, and that stuck with us for sure. It just gave us something to look forward to and gave us some motivation. Every win that we get, it's no bigger than the other, but it's definitely a part of our legacy. And, that's definitely what we're just trying to build. A team to remember. I definitely love that team, and it was just a team that was all about winning. From the head coach to even our janitors in our building. You know what I'm saying? They were the nicest people you could ever think of, but they was about winning, and everything that anybody in our building did, from trainers to staff to player, it was just all towards winning, and that's why I definitely love Memphis and that program, my team, because it just showed us like, we can do anything and just put our first foot forward and, just make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And obviously, the record spoke for itself, what you guys were able to do. And you yourself put up, according to ESPN.com, 36 tackles, 5.5 TFLs, 2 total sacks, also the big time interception there. I mentioned your Chattanooga performance, 4 tackles and a sack there. Going against Georgia State, you had 5 tackles, as well as 1.5 TFLs. And then Troy, with that interception, you had 2 big time hits to bring some people down as well there. So obviously, you had a lot more than just that. I believe you had one game where you had 7 or 8 tackles in that one and later on in the season, and just always finding ways to contribute for a defense. Where, as you mentioned before, one of the top defenses that Memphis has had in a while. You guys ranked third in the conference in points and yards allowed per game with a very veteran leadership group for this defense overall. What would you say was special about this defense that made it one of the best that Memphis has had in quite some time?
Um, I would just say honestly, just the guys that I played with, we came from all over places. We've been through a lot of stuff. A few of us had a few nicks and bruises, injuries. A few of us have been to different places. A few of us have moved around the schools. But I feel like, just being together at Memphis, us being a little older group, be able to play off each other, kind of know what other guys want, and just being able to play ball with each other and just being an older group, it gives you that sense of security. You're able to move a few guys around, able to play more guys, just able to have trust in each other. So I feel like, just that veteran leadership was just able to push us more, in a sense. It was more player led. Our players could step in and handle more things than rather than having our coaches do everything. So it was just a sense of security, I would say, having those older guys to gel together and be together, it was just a grown man defense, I should say.
Hey, absolutely, man. Definitely a grown man defense. And you mentioned right there, actually, that, some of y'all had some nicks and bruises throughout your careers. I know you ended up missing one season because you had an injury during your time at Tennessee State. And you guys ended up having a little bit of an injury bug there towards the end of the season. I know some guys ended up going down, other guys had to step up. And overall on the season, you guys were able to come out on top with a winning record, 8-5 overall. In conference action, obviously very tough conference, 4-4 in the AAC, but you guys had big wins over USF, number 18 team in the country at the time, 34-31. I believe it was a top 20 matchup at the time between you and them. You guys were nationally ranked as well. 28-7 win over Troy held them to just a touchdown, and then Georgia State 38-16, being able to really show what this defense could do. But then towards the end of the season, things kind of went a little sideways. 0-4 to end the season, including that bowl game against NC State. What would you say was that X factor that was missing there towards the end of the season? Even though you guys were able to still keep it close, I want to specify that it wasn't like you guys were getting blown out. It was maybe a field goal, a touchdown sometimes, and you guys were able to still hang in there. What would you say was that X factor that ended up kind of was missing there at the end? And how did you guys, as these veteran players, respond to try to make up for that?
Honestly, we did have a few nicks and bruises towards the end of the season, which were some guys that we needed. They weren't able to play a little bit towards the end, and just being a veteran leadership, it's part of the game. You will take some losses here and there, but just trying to keep our guys motivated and, just keep telling them, it's not the end of the season. And, it was a long year. Honestly, we had a lot of high hopes going to the college football playoffs. And, our season did take a big shift, but just trying to keep that course of anything is possible. And as long as we win each game, going forward, then, we can handle anything. But, it's a year. It definitely was a year of football. And the ball bounces either way for sure, depending on days. But I just felt like that team, every game, even the games that we lost, we always gave it our all. So it was just a last four games and some things that you can't recall. The ball bounced that way that day, and I always felt like my team always gave it their all for 4 quarters. No matter what the score was, we played like it was 0-0. So that's all that I could ask for. And so at the end of the year, we had a good year and made a lot of great memories for sure.
Hey, absolutely, man. And you had a great year to wrap up your college career. Obviously, just wrapped up your pro day, I believe, recently with Memphis, getting to show some scouts what you were able to do, being able to go off and end your career with a bowl game appearance, and being on the biggest stage with FBS, going against these Power Five opponents, making a name for yourself at every single level possible. Because, like you mentioned before, no matter what level you're at, dogs are going to be dogs and the pros are going to find you. That's
Yes, sir.
something that you have been able to show, been able to do. Talk me real quick about this past year alone with Memphis and how would you say you were able to improve your game the most and how that can help you moving forward to begin your professional career?
For me, I played a lot of edge this year. I'm more so an interior three tech nose, but I played the five really for the whole year. So it was definitely a lot of changing for me, but just a lot of growth in my game. Just being able to play against that tackle, rush against that tackle, and be able to get a lot of run safes against him. So just expanding and being able to go against, in a sense, those bigger guys and being able to play through that tackle and be able to play with him on the run and kind of step towards the guards. They kind of had us moving a lot, and on third downs playing at zero nose. So I feel like this year, for me, it was just opening my game up and kind of showing what more I can do, and showing that I can play the edge, showing that I can play the three, the two out of one, wherever on the defensive line. So that kind of for me, was. To me, like just the way that I feel like I elevated my game and changed it a little bit, just showing those guys that I can rush from a nine, a five, a three, wherever you need me to rush from, wherever you need me to play, interior wise and outside on the run or pass. I definitely felt like, that kind of was just a growth for me in my game this year, being able to expand and play on the outside of the D line and just showing them that I can do that as well.
Hey, absolutely, man. Definitely showed that you have that versatility, able to do a multitude of positions, doing what you could do. And obviously, with that pick, you showed them, hey, I might be able to drop into coverage a little bit as
Yeah,
well,
I think you just said.
doing what you do. And I love how you've also been able to hype up your teammates. You gave a lot of credit to your guys' cornerback for deflecting that so you could get the interception, as well as, the rest of the D line, giving them credit for always giving it their all. And I want to give you a chance to shout some guys out specifically in this segment that I like to call Who's Up Next, where you get to recommend some people that I can have on the podcast, get them to talk about their careers, their stories, just as you're doing now. So, who would you say is next up on the Sun Sports podcast?
Next up, man, you probably need to talk to Poodle Walker or Drew Watts or William Whitlow. Drew Watts, that's my linebacker, wears number 7 for Memphis. Buda Walker, 99, plays defensive line. And then William Whitlow play defensive line and defensive end for Memphis as well. All their draft years this year as well, for sure.
Hey, definitely a whole lot of dogs on that Memphis defense for sure. Saw it in person with what you guys were able to do. And obviously, those are some great names for who's up next. And now we've got to talk about what's next specifically. I mentioned that you had your pro day. You're getting ready to go on to have a professional career in the NFL, do whatever you can to end up making a roster in what's the best of the best. You know, we talked about the college ranks, you moving up, continuing to grow. Now you're taking another step to find another way to grow. What is this offseason really meaning to you as far as how you're finding ways to improve physically and mentally to continue the game, having a career in the game that you love?
Man, this off season is everything to me. I just really just been trying different training. Just opening up everything, doing speed training, D line this. Schedule's been hectic, but I'm definitely loving it. Just being a pro. Making everything about ball from getting my mind right to my body right to eating everything that's healthy for me. Vitamins, all the good stuff. Just becoming a pro, just ready for that opportunity whenever that opportunity comes, and just taking advantage of everything, all workouts, everything mental, everything in the film room as well. Just trying to be ready for when that call comes. I'm as ready as I ever will be for sure.
Hey, there you go, man. Definitely can't wait to see what the future holds for you. You can see the passion and the IQ that you have with this game that you love playing so much. No doubt in my mind, you're going to be able to continue doing it throughout multiple, many, many years moving forward, man. Can't wait to see where you end up. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Like you and I have talked about, it's been hectic over the past couple of weeks trying to find some time to get you on. Definitely excited to get somebody of your magnitude, somebody of your personality that has all smiles, all laughs on this podcast for a fantastic interview. So thank you so much, man.
Man, thank you so much for having me on. Really do appreciate you, man.